Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my latest Star Wars: The Old Republic Top 10 video. In today's video, I'll be counting down the top 10 hardest decisions players will have to make during their SWTOR playthroughs. Throughout this video, I'll be focusing specifically on respective storylines, rather than gameplay-related decisions such as gearing, mechanics, and commitments. On a side note, this video will be rather spoiler-heavy as I plan to cover content from the 8 character storylines as featured on release, alongside the Knights of the Fallen Empire, Knights of the Eternal Throne, and Onslaught expansions, so to emphasize, this video will contain spoilers for new players. And with that said, sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy yet another Star Wars: The Old Republic Top 10 video.
Number 10.
Starting off our list strong today, we have the decision to kill or spare Malavai Quinn after his reintroduction on Iokath. Sith warrior characters will have fond memories of Quinn betraying them on Quesh per Darth Barris' instructions. After this betrayal, Quinn is brought back to the Sith warrior's side as a companion, but now on Iokath, the player is given an opportunity. For those of you who may not recall, the Outlander character went missing just before the Knights of the Fallen Empire expansion began, leaving all player companions oblivious to our whereabouts. Quinn was given the unique opportunity to aid in finding the Outlander, but as it turns out, Quinn had returned to the Empire and bowed down to Minister Lorman. Lorman, not being too fond of our character, instructed Quinn to give up the search. This now being the second time Quinn had failed. Players, particularly Darkside aligned players, are much more likely to strike down the companion as a result of this failure. However, for some players, myself included, there is a moment of hesitation, whereas people really need to consider the repercussions of killing Quinn, and whether or not these repercussions are worth properly thinking about, as on main toons this can mean one less companion and one less Imperial ally, making this one of the harder decisions to make in all of SWTOR.
Number 9.
During Knights of the Fallen Empire Chapter 14, Mandalore the Avenger, the player is tasked with leading a Mandalorian raid on a significant Skytrooper factory located on the planet of Darvanis. This is in an effort to halt Skytrooper productions once and for all. Amidst the conflict, the player is given 3 options that will change the fate of the Mandalorian forces on the ground. Bounty Hunter companion Taurian Kadera controls the Skytrooper artillery defenses from within the facility and has the option to turn the guns around and fire an artillery strike on the Skytrooper base with Clan Sean and the Mandalorian forces still inside. Players furthermore can influence Taurian, asking him not to fire the artillery defenses, with the light side option outright forbidding it, thus saving the Mandalorian forces inside and risking the success of the raid, whilst the dark side option encourages Taurian to fire the guns, outright killing the Mandalorian forces inside and successfully destroying the facility. There is also a neutral option that leaves the decision to Taurian and gains Taurian's approval and leads to the firing of the guns anyway, thus killing Sean and his men whilst also destroying the Skytrooper factory. The outcome boils down to deciding whether or not the player should use or not use the artillery defenses. This decision is made even harder for the player as it further changes the hierarchy of power within the universe, as players who choose the dark side option effectively weaken the Mandalorians, making them less of a threat to the galaxy, meaning Mandalorian fans lose many potential allies for upcoming expansions. The Outlander companion Lana Beniko further enforces this and mentions that the Mandalorians are a rogue faction and that saving them could do significant damage to the Empire and the Republic in the long run. The player has to therefore think so hard about this in order to make the best decision for their respective factions. Mandalorian enthusiasts or even fans of the Mandalorian TV show will naturally struggle with killing off Mandalorians, thereby risking their own faction, whilst additionally not destroying the Skytrooper factory may result in the Zakulian Empire gaining a significant advantage overall, therefore toppling all factions regardless. With so many variables, players truly have a tough decision to make.
Number 8.
During the Nathema Conspiracy Flashpoint added in patch 5.9, players are given a dark side option to leave the Outlander companion Theron Shan to die alongside the Order of Zildrog on the planet of Nathema. Players furthermore have the option to save Theron and allow him to return to Odessen and thereby rejoin the Eternal Alliance. However, this is risky. Depending on your personal playstyle, you will naturally have to decide for yourself whether you think Theron should return to your side and thus rejoin the Alliance. The conundrum is made more pressing when you consider Theron's actions up to that point, such as his decision to go undercover and abandon the Alliance for such a long period of time, without even informing the Outlander of his intentions. He claims it was to spy on the Order of Zildrog, yet he supplies very little evidence to support this, claiming the Gemini droids were just monitoring his every move. In extension, it could be argued that Theron was not ordered to spy on the Order of Zildrog in the first place, nor did the Alliance, which could be seen as disobeying the commander altogether. Theron's justification for this spontaneous action was that spies within the Alliance would further intercept any effort Theron would make to communicate, and therefore Theron was unable to inform the commander of this plan. It's a plausible excuse and possibly viable, but again, that is for the player to decide. Furthermore, there are countless fan theories as to justify Theron's actions here. Perhaps he went triple agent last minute upon the realization that the Order of Zildjian was about to collapse, and that could be why he confessed, or equally you could argue that Theron was being truthful from the get-go and wanted to stop Zildjian all along, as he exclaimed. Amongst all this as well, players need to actually justify and consider whether or not death is even a fair punishment for potential betrayal, as there's no middle ground option, so it's one extreme or the other, death with Zildjian or rejoining the Alliance, making this decision even harder for skeptical players as there's no clear-cut choice. Either way, players have to think deeply about the repercussion of Theron's return to the Alliance, as he could still be looking to get back at the commander. Additionally, killing Theron could do further damage also, as Theron before leaving was a critical figure within the Alliance. His death would surely impact the allegiance of other members and further disrupt day-to-day operations within the player faction, making this one of the harder decisions to make in all of SWTOR, and further making players doubt their own choices leading up to this point.
Number 7.
Next up at number 7, we have the Commander's ultimate decision to join either the new Sith Empire or the new Galactic Republic. The Outlander companion Lana Beniko pitches to the Commander in a personal conversation on Odessen whether or not the Alliance would like to ultimately support one of these two factions concerning their upcoming war efforts. It is up to the player to decide which faction the Alliance should support. At this point in the war between both the Empire and the Republic, it is very likely that this support from the Alliance would change the fate of the galaxy forever, as the Alliance is in itself a very powerful force that managed to overthrow and repossess most of the assets from the former Eternal Empire, including the Eternal Fleet. This conversation with Lana may seem innocent on the surface, but has huge consequences to the player and the player's narrative direction going forward, as this decision not only alters the story from this moment forth, but also introduces the player to a whole new range of characters, questlines and objectives that the player wouldn't have seen otherwise. This decision, unlike others on this list, fundamentally affects the player's SWTOR experience for the War for Iokat storyline and other storylines going forward.
Number 6.
Ever since SWTOR's initial release, players have had the option to improve their standing with their companion through a plethora of methods, whether it be giving said companion gifts or selecting options via SWTOR's conversation system that supports the companion's specific views. Uniquely, the Sith warrior companion Jaxo Wilson can be highly influenced to either support the dark side of the Force or the light side of the Force, based on the player's alignment and the companion's observation of specific player interactions. Players therefore can manipulate the companion to either joining the dark side or supporting the light, enabling Jaxo access to different abilities and different personality traits, depending on the decisions the player has made. This, however, pushes players to really consider their choices when speaking with Jaxo, as over time her personality will change, specifically around how she treats others and how she treats the Sith warrior character. Eventually, during update 5.10 Jedi Under Siege, players will even witness the repercussions of their actions as Jaxo returns to the Outlander's side, revealing what she had been up to whilst the player had been running the Alliance. Depending on whether she was pushed to either the dark or light side, Jaxo will have either spent years envious of the Outlander, seeking revenge, or if light, Jaxo will have spent her time assisting Master Nostoral in his understanding of Sith philosophy. Either way, the player has influence over Jace's life in such a way that it completely changes her storyline within the game.
Number 5.
A quickfire decision for number 5 today, but an equally hard decision nonetheless, and that is working out your character's relationships with their various companions throughout both the Knights of the Fallen Empire and Knights of the Eternal Throne expansions, specifically in this instance focusing around romancing Lana Beniko. To start off with an example, at the end of the Onslaught expansion, update 6.0, players are greeted by various companions and friends who wish to rekindle or restart their relationships with the Outlander. Depending on their choices, players who have already started a relationship with Lana Beniko can very easily trigger a deep breakup cutscene between both the player and Lana. This scene takes place at the Outlander's private quarters on Odessen, whereas Lana summons you. The player has to seriously think about the repercussions of cheating on Lana in the game, and whether or not Lana would actually find out. Unfortunately, however, she does, and will confront the Outlander no matter which companion you attempt to re-romance. The outcome is a conversation, whereas Lana expresses how hurt she feels, considering her commitment to both the Alliance and, in extension, the Outlander. but she takes a very mature approach to the breakup and simply asks the Outlander to do the same, which can very easily make players regret their decisions or feel bad. Players must furthermore be very attentive throughout most scenes with various older companions, as it's very easy to skip a cutscene and accidentally trigger a relationship with another character, thus triggering this Lana breakup sequence.
Number 4.
The runner-up today concerns the events on Ossus after the return of Darth Malgus himself. In Update 5.10 Jedi Under Siege, players are treated with the option to kill a member of the opposition's administration, this being either Jedi Master Nost Doral if sided with the Empire. Most of you may know him from the official Star Wars The Old Republic Galactic Timeline records, as seen on YouTube, whilst Republic players receive the opportunity to execute Darth Malora, a Sith Dark Council member, head to the Sith Scientific Advancement Division, and is best known for her appearance in the Sith storyline on Korriban. Both Jedi Master Nost Doral and Darth Malora have critical roles in their respective factions, and either of their deaths would strike a cataclysmic blow to the opposition. Their fate would eventually domino into the events that would become Update 6.0 Galactic Onslaught, as if either is killed or captured, their faction would be weakened for the upcoming war. The decision was hard for most players, including myself, as players have to first consider who would replace these key figures throughout the campaign, and if this would vary the campaign much going forward, which, as we learn with Update 6.0, these events would eventually change the tide of the war. Players therefore really have to consider their options in this scenario based on not only their character's alignment, but also their own personal feelings on the story, and if they want these iconic characters featured throughout their own campaign or any content going forward.
Number 3.
Taking the number 3 spot on our list today, we have Kira's romance as featured alongside the Jedi Knight campaign, whereas players are introduced to their new apprentice, Kira Carson. Kira is assigned to work with the hero of Tython by Satele Shan after the player's successes on the planet of Coruscant. Via companion influence and companion gifts, players are able to build up affections with Kira to the point where they can begin a relationship with the companion. Kira was and still is a fan favourite companion, and has over the years constructed a rather large following, and with her recent return in 6.0, the Onslaught expansion, players' connections with the character have only been rekindled, making this decision all the much harder when replaying through the Jedi Knight storyline. During the romance conversation itself, Kira expresses her interest in the hero character, but as many lore enthusiasts may know, the Jedi Code strictly expresses against the forging of any personal relationships. Jedi are further not allowed any contact with their families and cannot get involved in any romantic relationships, meaning interacting in a romantic sense would be a violation of the Jedi Code. Romancing Kira therefore is considered a more dark side option. Players must value the relationship between themselves, the Jedi Order, and their companion to ultimately decide which path would be the best for their character, making this one of the harder decisions in the MMO.
Number 2.
During the Trooper campaign, players interact with Ava Jaxo, a sergeant of the Republic Special Forces. Ava Jaxo develops a charming relationship with the player throughout the Trooper campaign, whereas they put a stop to the Black Sun Syndicate and their activities on Coruscant. Later on, Jaxo is eventually captured by the Empire and held in a prison facility named A77. The player is tasked with going to rescue Jaxo alongside the various prisoners. Upon arrival at the complex, the player is informed that this was all a trap set up by the Empire to lure in Havoc Squad in an effort to destroy them. Luckily, the player has enough time to escape the facility. However, the player is given two choices upon escape: save Jaxo or save the 300 prisoners. Doing both would take too long, and as a result, all involved parties would be destroyed. Players here have to make a crucial and intense decision, whether to save Jaxo's life, and if her life is therefore worth all of that of the prisoners, or if it is best to leave Jaxo behind and save 300 Imperial captives. Morally, the answer may be obvious, but players do develop a personal connection with Jaxo alongside their arc, which does often leave players hesitant on proceeding. Basically, it's a matter of save the majority or save the personal connection. Either way, there are numerous repercussions. If you save Jaxo, will she feel guilty? If you save the majority, will the player miss Jaxo? It is truly one of the hardest decisions to make in all of SWTOR.
Number 1.
Taking the number 1 spot on our list today, we have the Vet or Taurian dilemma. Whilst progressing through the Knights of the Fallen Empire's Chapter 12, the player is given a chance to pick between two beloved companions. Said companions are both on the battlefield about to be overrun by Eternal Empire-aligned Skytroopers. There is little time to react, so players must think on their feet when choosing who to support. The player must choose to aid either the Sith warrior companion Vet or the bounty hunter companion Taurian. The companion the player chooses not to aid will be overwhelmed and will die in the following cutscene, making the choice very meaningful to most players. Players who are only familiar with their own class stories tend to favour the companion they've progressed the most with, but players who know both characters or have perhaps run multiple class stories are much more likely to have a dilemma when choosing who to save, specifically around their own interests and who the player likes the most. Both characters furthermore are iconic characters from the game's release and have been around throughout the various expansions leading up to Knights of the Fallen Empire, making this decision one of the most impactful and meaningful for long-time fans and long-time players. The outcome from this scenario, regardless of choice, is always very traumatic, and no matter who you choose, it feels like the wrong decision. Players therefore have to think hard about who they're going to save, as this will affect your character's available companions in the later game and further compromise potential romance options later on. And with that said, we wrap up our top 10 hardest decisions in all of SWTOR. Thank you all very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed yet another top 10 video, and I look forward to producing more content in the near future. For those of you who are interested in checking out more of my content, feel free to hit the subscribe button and bell icon for more SWTOR top 10s and discussion videos. Additionally, for players looking for sub time in game or perhaps some character perks, you can find my referral link in the description. It's free to use and helps out a lot with the more cartel market heavy videos. Again, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Bye guys.